Imagine your workday begins by delivering the world's most sensitive intelligence directly to the President of the United States. That was the reality for my guest, Kelly McGannon. During her 20-year career with the CIA, she delivered that intelligence at the highest level, serving two U.S. presidents on the Daily Brief staff. Her work as a strategist, driving analysis on emerging technologies, was so influential it shaped U.S. policy and earned her the National Intelligence Meritorious Unit citation twice. But what makes her story so compelling isn't just her time in the CIA, it's how she blended that high stakes intellectual world with the deep physical intuition honed through years of dedicated martial arts practice. We're about to learn what it means to be bold, not just in your mind, but in every fiber of your being. Kelly McGannon, it is an honor to have you here on the Bold Moves How Did You Know podcast today. Thank you for joining me.
Kristen, thank you so much for having me. I'm really delighted to be here.
Me too. This is honestly the most exciting interview I think I've ever done. I think it's
Oh
just
gosh.
because it really piques my curiosity and my interest in the world of the CIA. I don't know that I've interviewed anybody with such high stakes before, right? Where your job is like literally informing national intelligence. And it just piques my curiosity. I get really excited to learn the inner workings of organizations like that. Probably because we don't always know as much about those organizations. This conversation is going to be so enlightening today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think one of the things about the agency is that there's a lot of mystique and a lot of Hollywood attached to it. But
Yeah.
just like people constellating anywhere, it's probably a lot more like The Office than, you know, James Bond or Hollywood. There's a little mix of that, but we're just people, serving the public interest and working for the Constitution.
I'm so glad you said that because, often as I was thinking of our interview today and preparing, one of the questions is what are some of the biggest myths about the CIA that people get wrong? Are there myths about the CIA that you have to demystify for people?
Yes, I am not chipped. I do not have like radioactivity inside of me. I don't have helicopters picking me up from garden parties like we saw in Jack Ryan. I don't parachute out of planes. I don't do those things. But I like that people think that I do. It's kind of exciting.
That is true. Like the Hollywood movies really add to that level of intrigue because it shows all of these crazy, wild situations that you're put in every day. But really, it's probably a lot less interesting, or not interesting, but a lot less exciting than that on a daily basis.
Yeah, but you know what? Like most organizations or institutions, we started out as a startup during World War II. We were the
Mm,
Office of Strategic Services, OSS. And
mm,
so after the war, we became an official institution, I think 1947,
mm.
I think that sounds about right. And in that, there were people who jumped out of planes and worked with the French resistance and operated against the Nazis. So we do have that in
Mhm,
our
mhm,
background.
mhm.
But like any institution, as you get older, you'll have a very long history, and it can be
Yeah.
wide in terms of how the public perceives it. We're a little like the royal family in that we can never really come back and make our own statements. So a lot of the good work that we do will never be known in the world. We just are usually, we'll say internally, we end up on the X when there's something bad that happens, but all the good often gets never
Yeah.
disclosed until much later.
Fascinating. Okay, so let's go back 20 years ago, right? Just over
Yes,
20 years
yes.
ago when you joined the CIA.
Mhm.
That was a bold decision, I would say, to join the Central Intelligence Agency for the United States of America. I wonder, first, I want to know, and I think maybe a lot of listeners would want to know as well, how do you even join the CIA? Do you have to be recruited? Is it an application process just as you would for any other job? What does that look like?
Yeah, it looks like a lot of different ways. You can go on USA Jobs. You can also go onto CIA.gov's website. You can apply online. That's
Okay.
how it's done these days. When it happened to me, it was a chance meeting. It was not something that I ever thought I would end up doing. The story goes back in like 2003. The Iraq War was going on as a country. We were about a year and a half post 9/11.
Hmm.
I remember like lying in my bed in my apartment in Indiana. I was teaching at a small women's college called St. Mary's College of Notre Dame,
Hmm.
Indiana. And I was listening to the BBC radio about the invasion of Iraq. And I remember thinking at the time, like, wow, this is really happening. Like, when was the last time you
Oh.
listened to the radio and you heard move by move what was happening in Iraq? And then with the country was so not fragile, but it was a sensitive time where there was a lot of mobilization from people who were about my age who wanted to do something to
Hmm.
be of service somewhere,
Hmm.
whether it was wanting to go into medicine or wanting to go into the army or serve somehow.
Hmm.
And I had that kind of call within me too. I knew that I didn't want to do the military, but I knew that I wanted to be of service. And Alias was on TV. So for those of your viewers or listeners who remember Alias with Jennifer Gardner, she made it look so freaking cool.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
thought, if I could ever be like Jennifer Gardner, that would be amazing. And so there was a career fair at Notre Dame, and I was encouraging my students to go over and see what the world had for them. And when
Hmm.
I went over there to look at a PhD program, I ended up talking to the proverbial gray man. They do exist, completely blendable. We just were chatting. He was a Notre Dame grad alum, and the more we were talking about
Okay.
my experiences, he's like, "Oh, you're a martial artist. Oh, you were learning Arabic. Oh, you
Mm.
lived in the Middle East. Oh, you were like being like Indiana Jones in the Middle East. Oh, you went to Yale. Oh, you did these things." And I said,
Wow.
"Yes." And I want to go on to do my doctorate. And he said, I don't always do this, but here's my card. And he gave me a card that said like Central Intelligence Agency, his name. And I looked at him and I said, this is a scam. This is not how this works. I watch Alias. I should know. And he said,
Right.
no, I promise you, if you call this number, I will answer and we would love to bring you in. And the way that they did it was if you were in graduate school, you could get started as a graduate fellow, which meant that they would bring you on
Mm.
board. It was a paid internship and you would be a part of this. And so I remember like taking this card and calling my mom and saying, "So this weird thing happened. This is weird. I think it's a scam. But should I call?" Because remember, The Matrix had also come out in 1999, and so I was like, "Is this the red pill, the blue pill? Like what is this?" And I decided to call because I didn't want my older future self to ever
Yeah.
look back on that moment and regret not only an opportunity
Mm.
to become a public servant, but also maybe an adventure of a lifetime.
Yeah.
And from a kid from like, Ohio, where a lot of people thought it was like flyover country, I just thought, I'd love to see the world and maybe this would be a way to do it. And so it kind of like served a lot of different interests at that time. But I remember that whole summer, pretty sure like a helicopter was, following me.
Yes.
Like my mind, my imagination. But like
Yes.
the helicopters don't follow people. It doesn't happen. So
Oh my gosh, yes, your curiosity and your intrigue must have been piqued at the highest degree because as you noted, we see all of that world happen in the movies and it feels so secretive and I don't know, the cool factor. There's this intelligence world that lives kind of in the underbelly, not in a negative way, but below the
right.
surface, right? Below the surface of what the public always knows. And that would have
Right.
got me calling that phone number too. I remember being approached in a mall with a modeling opportunity, and I was never calling that card. But if somebody from the CIA approached me, I might think twice about calling.
I know. I remember being processed that summer, I eventually got into a doctorate program, so I knew I was headed to Princeton. But this was like a blip on the way to Princeton. And I
Okay.
remember that whole summer as they were processing me with a polygraph and psych assessment tests and
Wow.
intelligence testing and interviews. I just remember thinking, this is so weird. Like, I won't ever really be able to talk about the particulars of these things, but like, man, this is a
Yeah.
strange experience. And thinking the whole time, like, what am I doing?
You must have felt like you were sitting in a movie, like you're gonna pinch yourself all of a sudden and wake up and realize that, "Oh my gosh, I've been in a movie."
I know. I was really hoping that I would meet Jennifer Gardner at some
Yeah.
point and she would be like, oh my God, here's my alias wig. And I'd be like, yes, I've
Yes.
arrived. But
Oh, I
I
love
never
that.
did meet her and I never did get that alias wig, but it was still a lot of fun.
When you were going through the process, as you said, I forget how you phrased it, but like the processing process of getting anointed into the CIA, were there just so many like pinch me moments that you recall? Like, is this really my life? Is this really happening to me? Did it feel so surreal?
It was surreal. I remember because when you take on that course of becoming a public servant for the intelligence community, you they comb through your entire life. So it felt invasive, where they talk to all your neighbors, they find out every
Oh.
place you've ever lived. There's a financial disclosure form. You have to be very careful with who you're friends with who are not American citizens. It's a
Mm,
lot of just scrutiny, and because they want to ensure that you're trustworthy, you can live a life of discretion, and that
mm,
you are a good American, essentially. And I
mm.
remember going through this process and losing friends out of my
Yeah.
graduate programs who were like, what are you doing? Like, what are you going to
Mhm.
be a part of? And I said, well, I don't know, because I won't know until I get there. So at
Yeah.
least I want to peek behind the curtain. But also, what an extraordinary moment as a young person to get to do something like this. And I knew it would change my life. I just didn't
Mm,
know how.
mm,
But I received some good advice before I entered, which was don't drink the Kool-Aid and always keep your eyes wide open. And just remember who you are and what you're about, and make sure you stay close to that as you go through this,
mm,
because it doesn't matter if you are a lawyer or you're an academic or you are a
mm,
startup founder or whatever you are. You want to remember who you are and not let the energies and the environments around you shapeshift you into being what they need you to be. You want to maintain your own agency and autonomy while you're living within the
mm,
confines of whatever your organization or institution or place of being
mm.
asks you to participate in. And so, that's like a lot of responsibility, and I took it seriously.
That's really good advice somebody told you about not drinking the Kool-Aid, because I can even think back to some of my experiences in corporate America where, as a ambitious type A achiever, I was really interested in proving myself. And I do
Hmm.
feel like I shape shifted in a lot of ways to meet the organization's needs. And sometimes maybe I personally lost clarity about my personal values in favor of what they needed from me. And eventually, I
Hmm.
know that took its toll. And there was a contrasting point or a conflicting point that I realized and woke up to that fact. But
Hmm.
for you, being given that advice early on, because I didn't have that sort of advice going into some of these situations. I just thought, oh, this is what they want from me. Great. That's what I'm going to do. Nobody told me to stay true to myself, which sounds like you should know that out the gate. But again, for somebody just looking to achieve and prove their value and be what, you know, ultimately, yes, get to where you want to go, but knowing where you want to go
Hmm.
requires the support of other people. Did
Right.
that not drink the Kool-Aid advice for you really help to stay grounded to your values as you move through the agency and your different roles?
Yes, I think it did. I grew up in a family of storytellers, so this is a lot of Appalachia roots, like West Virginia, Southern Ohio, River Valley, where people didn't go to college
Mm,
necessarily. Like my
mm,
grandparents couldn't afford, they
mhm,
didn't go to college. They were part of World War II. They got their education in the world. But their point back to me was always be very curious, learn the world, because the world will come to you regardless. You just don't know how yet. But do remember where you come from and remember what you're
uh-huh,
about, because people are always interested in taking from you to
mm,
serve their own interests. And sometimes you do that as a public servant. You are very giving in terms
mhm,
of serving something bigger than yourself, having a larger mission, but don't lose the core of who you are in that process.
mhm.
And it can be very seductive, I think, especially for women when you are young and you are trying to figure yourself out, and you're trying to figure yourself out in these systems and institutions and
Yes,
places of business where you are expected to be a particular way. And that we're not even talking about the cultural overlays of what you should be as a
yes,
woman.
yes, right.
And so I remember, like, very early on in my career, we talked earlier about paying attention to your body. I remember there used to be a security guard who, when we would come through the front gates and we would show our badge, he would salute everybody who would come in for the day. And I
Mm.
remember like liking that, like,
Mm.
oh wow, I'm not in military. Like, why is he saluting me? And thinking like, wow, that felt kind of cool. Like he was
Mm.
acknowledging what I'm doing today. That's amazing. And then I thought, wait, stop, because that can be seductive. That
Mm.
can be, while he was doing it, I mean, I never went and talked to him about it, but the story I make up about it is that he was honoring us as we came in because, we're public servants, and that maybe he came out of the military and that was the thing that he did.
Mm.
And I remember thinking, like, you you are just another human being coming through the gates this morning. You cannot let this become part of your identity, because you won't
Mm.
always be coming in and out of these gates. Hopefully you'll have a long life where you'll do lots of many things.
Mm.
So,
Mhm.
but I just remember it was that internal feeling of like, ooh, that feels good. And then it's like,
Yes.
right away, because you do not
Yes.
want to be the person who thinks that this is cool on the daily.
Thank you for sharing that story. We talk a lot on Bold Moves podcast about your identity and who you are and how to always stay grounded in who you are and not letting, you're going to lose your identity in some shapes or forms throughout your life because of different
Mm-hmm.
situations, but it's so helpful to be reminded to pull yourself back and really remind yourself of who you are at the core and making sure that aligns to what you're doing and why you're doing it. So I'm so glad that you were able to share that within the context of your role at the CIA too, which I feel like could really become somebody's identity. I mean, they basically, well, and Kelly, you correct me where I'm wrong, right? Because now I'm going into Hollywood myths here, but they, and in a lot of ways, you already spoke about a life of discretion, and that can mean stripping your identity away to live that life. Is that correct in some ways, where like identity is a core component of what you have to mold and adapt in these different situations that you get into?
Mm-hmm. I think it's probably true for every place. And I don't think that the
Mhm.
agency is special in that,
Mhm.
because we want to know that we belong. And we want to know that we belong to the places where we're committing our life energy, our ideas, our
Yeah.
passion, our hearts, our everything. So there is a tendency, I think, for many of us to over identify with whatever it is that we've joined, right? It could be the military, it could be OpenAI, for example, or it
Mm.
could be, we're that person doing that thing. But that is not going to last forever, because
Yeah.
one day we will retire, one day we will leave, one day we will be. And so for me, what was helpful was switching my mindset to every person you engage with, every place that you find yourself. These
Mhm.
are teachers for you. They're going to help pull out the parts of your personality. And, if you believe in something deeper than just your personality, they'll show you where you've got work to do, and they'll show you where you're doing like A plus
Right.
work. Yay, good, be you.
Yeah.
And I think the goal is not to continue to build your identity in these narrow pathways, but to build a presence
Mm.
as to what it is to be human. The place where you do it is just your laboratory, where you're kind of working it out with other people, experimenting along the way and figuring yourself out. I
Mhm.
think the goal of a life is to discover who you really are, try to live with authenticity and integrity, and then build a presence that will last beyond, how I'm
Yeah.
presenting physically. And I
Mhm.
think when people feel that, really like that special presence from within you, they know
Mm.
what to do with you. They know if they are psychologically safe. They know if they can trust you. They know,
Yeah.
if they want to spend more time with you or not.
You said the goal of a life is to truly understand who you are. And wow, what a big message, an amazing message to just ponder. I had never, we talk about legacy as you look back on your life, what you want your legacy to be, what your purpose is, a lot of conversation about making sure that, what you're doing is the purpose of your life. But I love looking at it from the lens of just fine tuning who you are along the way and staying authentic to that. And that's a well lived life.
Yeah.
Thank you for indulging me in that conversation and getting to know more about the CIA, how you even joined the CIA, and some of the the process that goes into that, I want to get into some of the intersection of your career with the CIA and the topic of the podcast around being bold. As you reflect on your career, I would love to hear a story that taught you a lasting lesson about what it means to be bold and what that lesson was and meant to you.
I think being bold, I think we have an opportunity to do it every day, but you're right. There are significant moments in the lifetime which are like the hallmark moments where you are going through something and you recognize while you're in it that this will forever transform you because of either the people involved, the conditions in which you find yourself, or what you're learning about yourself through that process.
Yeah.
And for me, that moment was in 2014 when I was on the President's Daily Brief staff. For your listeners, the PDB, as we call it, President's Daily Brief, is the internal product that is built by the agency, but is also informed throughout the intelligence community. But it comes up usually
Mm-hmm.
through CIA channels. And I was on kind of like the editorial desk. If you think of it like the equivalent of like the New York Times or like the Financial
Mm-hmm.
Times or another big newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
And my job was to liaise at the end of every night with our product that we were putting out for policymakers and making sure that the Office of the Directorate of National Intelligence was also seeing the book. And that as a
Right.
community, we were all aligned when the briefing cycle would start early the next morning. And that meant that I
Mm-hmm.
was privy to everything that was going on in the world and then trying to come home at like 2 a.m. and try to sleep at night. So those 4 years I was on that
Yeah.
staff doing that job was remarkable. It started right before Osama bin Laden was captured, and it ended as in 2015 when the Malaysian airplanes were like falling out of the sky. So those 4 years were remarkable years.
Wow.
And
Mm-hmm.
in that, we had the ISIS crisis, which is what I call that phase of my life. In 2014, if you'll recall, like ISIS was moving very steadily through Syria, moving into parts of Iraq, just moving. And
Yeah.
it was very well publicized in terms of like gruesome and disturbing content. And I remember
Yeah.
just thinking to myself, wow, I'm really looking at the sheer face of evil in the world. I mean, part of being a public
Mm-hmm.
servant means when the world wants to look away, you cannot. You must face what is present because your
Mm-hmm.
job is to serve in those very difficult
Mm-hmm.
moments, very much like the military and elsewhere. And you try to do no harm.
Right.
So I'm an analyst, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that means that I'm, privy to all this information. And one of the
Wow.
things that I noticed was that it was impacting me. And I didn't really even know it at the time. I just remember one
Mm.
night was waiting for a piece. It was probably about 9 p.m. And I told the crew, I said, hey, in the interim, I'm going to go out and like run around the compound. I'm just going to go for a run.
Okay.
And I got about halfway around the compound and had to stop because I couldn't breathe. I physically could
Mm.
not breathe. And I found a bench and I sat down on the bench and I was trying to get my breathing under control and I just burst into sobs.
Oh.
And I just started sobbing and I couldn't tell you why I was sobbing. And then, the cameras are watching like, great, like all my
Oh.
friends are going to see
Oh.
me like
Right.
sobbing on the cameras. I realized like when I got back, I'm like, this job is starting to get to you. This is heaviness. You now have to hold and to digest like the
Yes.
real sheer evil in the world. And that is going to cause you to lose innocence about what it means to be human. You're
Mm.
now being thrust into this moment where you're firsthand seeing it. And I know that this is a very privileged position because people are living the reality of this every single day and
Mm.
I'm watching it kind of like as a third
Mm.
party, right, at a distance. But it's part of being human, right? We just have been in America in a very lucky positioning for a long time. And so
Yeah.
what I started to listen to, because now I saw it in myself, I started to pay attention to the people around me. And there were more and more analysts who were coming up who were not well equipped to deal with this because
Mm.
they were working a lighter account that had no counterterrorism. They didn't grow up watching any of this or being exposed to this. And I became
Mm.
really good friends with another senior analyst who together we just looked at each other and we said, there's got to be something more that we can do. And I
Mm.
remember at the time we went to our Office of Medical Services and we said, hey, like I know I'm impacted by this. I can't sleep at night. I'm disturbed. I don't know how to be with this. And they said at the time, like, here's a white piece of paper, and like, you do yoga, you'll be fine. And I'm like, I am not okay. Like, this
Wow.
is a lot. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to normalize the conversation as to what we were seeing in the world and how it was impacting us, and how could we build more mindfulness, resiliency,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and to normalize that conversation. So we started a grassroots movement. This is where I talk about being bold. When we decided to do this, we did this because our complaint, we decided, was our mission, which is not my words. It's somebody else in the world who said that. And I just thought, we've got to, this is something for us. We wanted to make the culture better for us, but
mm-hmm,
we also wanted to around us and to become a better community, because we knew as the world became more volatile, became more tech infused, went at speed, we are going to probably, this wouldn't be the last time we would be exposed to this.
sure.
Information flow was just too fast now, and it was
Yeah.
coming in. So that's what we did. Within a year, we had normalized that conversation. We had spoken to our seniors. We got OMS on board. I think at first they were like, who are these analysts coming and getting into our business?
What
But
is
I think in
OMS?
time, yeah,
Oh,
Office of Medical Services.
oh.
And I think, looking back, this was 11 years ago, I think
Mm-hmm,
they were
mm-hmm,
just had a full plate. I think that we were in a cultural shift
mm-hmm,
where
mm-hmm,
previously we had been in the Cold War with a known actor, and now we were in a much more volatile world with,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
again, it's that information stream too fast, too so much coming in. And so the point is, we just work together to be more human with each other. And
mm-hmm,
hopefully that would lead us to be better humans at home and better at our jobs, and to be more like relational, which I recognize in saying that is hard when people look at this institution and make up stories about what it is and isn't, sometimes based upon history, which isn't always true.
mm-hmm,
I think the message that I want to share is that you've got people who feel that this is a calling, a vocation,
mm-hmm.
and they take it really seriously, and they can't afford eggs either, sometimes. And so
Interesting.
they're just
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
trying to give back and to be those eyes looking when no one else wants
Mm.
to look. Um, yeah.
Yeah. So the outcome of that bold moment where you decided to rise to the occasion and turn your complaint into your message, if I heard you
Mm-hmm.
correctly, what was the result of that? What did you end up building and then having implemented across the organization?
Yeah, so what I can speak about now in
Mhm,
2025 is that
mhm,
we have a dedicated office to this work now. We
mhm,
have a doctor from the Mayo Clinic who's now consulting on this. We have drop-in meditation programs. We have so
mhm,
much more than we had available. So the generation that will come in to serve now will be coming into a remarkably changed environment than when
mm.
I came in 2003, 2004.
Ah,
So I think what
mhm,
it did for us was
mm,
to feel like not only were we giving back to our
mhm,
country, but we were giving back to each other who had become our family.
mm,
Because in these environments, you can't take your work home with you. You
mm,
can't talk about what you did in your
mm,
day. And again, that's
mm,
not dissimilar to
mhm.
HIPAA concerns, or if you're
Yeah.
a lawyer or
Mm,
NDA restricted, that we won't be able to ever say. But I think we saw each other's humanity and each other
mm,
in these moments when you recognize, wow, public service is so much more than I think we thought when we joined. And it really, I think for many of us, meant that we would be exposed to the good, the bad, and the really ugly of human behavior. That's really public service, because you're giving to people in all states and doing it on behalf of your country. Um,
yeah.
and every other country is doing this too, by the way. So, it's an interesting
Mm,
world to become a part of
mm.
for the time that you're in it.
The question for this season is how do you continue to be bold inside of your bold move? And I feel like you just gave the perfect example of that. And I think a lot of listeners can relate that sometimes you're doing the work that you love, but also you get another itch, another desire, you see another problem like you did, Kelly, And often I think we just kind of ignore those things and think, okay, somebody else will take care of it, or there's too much on my plate. I don't have the time to pay attention to that. But the lesson here for me that I'm taking away is that if you see something and it's the change you need, it's probably the change other people need as well, and that can be your moment to shine and really have a bigger impact than the work that you're already doing on behalf of your organization. So
Mhm.
the result of being bold inside of your bold move can actually change people's lives, just like it did for the work that Kelly did inside of her bold move. Would you have anything to add to that about the result, the outcome of being bold inside of your bold move?
Absolutely. I've been thinking a lot about this because I've been a student of disruption. I think I've become a bit of an expert in it from my career in terms of
Mm-hmm.
how do people react to it? How do we respond to it? Where does it come from internally, externally, and what do we do about it? And one of the things I've concluded is that if you feel called to have and to make a bold move, which I do believe is part of being human, and I think we're going to do it more than once in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
So the more you do it, the more you're going to have confidence in your ability to do it again once you've
Yes.
made that first leap. I'm thinking specifically about kids who are getting ready to leave college for the real world, and that's going to be a massive leap for them.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about a bold move. They're going
Yes.
into an environment that feels really scary and
Mm-hmm.
uncertain. So they're going to do that probably many times, just as you and I have done it many times now. So, what I've learned along the way is that when you make a bold move, the wisdom that I've learned the hard way is that if the only person you change in your process of being bold is yourself, it's enough. Because when we try to make bold moves on behalf of others, what you're essentially doing is
Mm.
there's something inside of you that wants to be
Yes.
changed, asking for growth. And sometimes we project that onto a population like, and I'm going to bring everybody with me. Not everybody wants to go with you in this bold move. You are now disrupting something. And so I think it can take a lot of pressure off the bold move where it's okay and it's enough to say, I made a bold move and it changed me. And that's really what matters. And if my intention or my consequence of that act is to have like a ripple effect, then I trust that it's going to happen naturally. It's
Yeah.
not something I have to do or manipulate or make happen, but people will feel it because I'm fundamentally changed. And you will present in a different way
Yeah.
then because you have been shifted. And I think that's the boldest move at all is to look at yourself and say, I don't need to do more
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
everyone else. I just need to do for me. That's enough because it will naturally ripple out.
I want to start touching on the in body somatic awareness that you've cultivated over all of your lived experience in total, right? And this is something that you also brought into the CIA. And a lot of times, I think we think of the CIA as a lot of mental work, challenges, and strategy that comes from the head. But you have been teaching, and it's so interesting about how your body and what you feel inside your body is actually more of the equation, maybe. And you can tell me again your experiences here. But would love to start a conversation with you, Kelly, about body intelligence and how you use that as a tool to maybe read a room or manage high stress situations or even sense when something is off. So, yeah, let's talk about all of that somatic work you've done, your experience with it, and how have you applied it in these very high stakes, stressful situations in the CIA, and how has that benefited you?
Yeah, so I'm really lucky that I came from a family where my mother specifically would always tell my sister and me, where's your spot in the house where you feel like you are calm and grounded? And you'd have like that part of the couch that you would always sit in, or like that part outside in the
Mm,
backyard. So she would also say, like, girls, like as you go through life, pay attention to that inner feeling. Like, what's that inner feeling that says that something feels good and something doesn't feel good? And you should absolutely trust both sides of that equation. So I thought that was normal. Like, I growing up through life, I kind of like would listen
mhm,
to like, oh, that feels good, or like, actually, I'm doing this and this feels terrible. I don't want to do this. I think when I got older, I wanted to concretize it into some sort of framework for myself. Like, is this just
Yeah,
my mom? Like, where is this coming from? I learned later that she was a big fan of Carlos Castaneda. Like she did a lot of like transcendental meditation in like the
I
60s and
see.
early 70s. And so like, not that she was a hippie, but when I was reading those books, I was like, did you get this from this book? And she's like, I did. And I thought, oh, mom, sneaky.
You pegged
Talk
it.
about being sneaky. You pegged it. I know. That got me really interested in, I think it first came when I was boxing when I was 18, a freshman in college. And I remember my boxing coach saying, well, if you could just be the most relaxed person, you could actually stretch your punch by half an inch. And I was like, what? Like, how, you mean the more relaxed I
Mm-hmm.
am, the more effective I am? Like, what are you talking about? And he would also
Mm-hmm.
say things like, the person who breathes best in the ring is the person who will win the fight. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, let's just see. And so when I got into martial arts and I trained, I was very lucky to train with some very traditional like senseis around the world who come from different countries and have a different approach. A lot of it was centered on meditation. We would begin our work, breathing and calming our minds and seeing how we were going to be, and then getting into, simulated fights or
Mm-hmm.
katas or whatever we were doing. And then, we would meditate at the end. And so I knew this is calming me down. I can see myself more clearly. My mind's not fluctuating. And when I got into the agency, one of the benefits is that you get to take all kinds of great classes,
Mm-hmm.
self-defense classes, and you are meeting people from around the world. And we're a little like Hogwarts, if people understand Harry Potter's world. Like the agency really has 5 houses. You have analytics, ops, science and tech, digital innovation, and support. And so, operators are more in terms, they trust that felt sense because they're operating off of that when they're working in very hostile or dark environments. So they have to hone that. And so we're all kind of trading best practices of how you can be that in the world. And what that taught me was a couple of things. One, can I always try to be the most relaxed person anywhere that I am? And I think that's kind of how I got the nickname, like I'm the calm in the storm, truly. Like you could put me into any crisis, any like exploding moment, and I would be the person who would be like the most calm and could be clear headed. Of course, like when I get home, I'm like, oh my God, like what just happened?
Yeah.
But in the moment, I could be like really just grounded. And I think it was learning that if I even breathed meditation, through meditation or just mindfully for 5 minutes every morning, my day would be more calm than if I
Mm.
got up, like slammed a bunch of espresso and got in the car. So
Like
I
a
think
lot
we
of
have
us
to mix.
today. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we're
Right.
like, why don't I sleep? And why do people in my life like think I'm a pain in the butt, right? But I think a lot of that is, can I control? The only thing I can control in my day is my own weather, like how I'm showing up. So if I can get myself under control by recognizing where I am in my sleep cycle, where I am as a woman, right? As our
Sure.
hormones fluctuate, where am I? And then making sure that I'm calm and ready, no matter what faces me, and because the world is going to come to you, whether it's a difficult personality or a challenging moment in time, I should be able to face that moment, hopefully bringing my better self and leaving my not so great self. Maybe she's just taking a breather in the back. I don't know. So, yeah, I think that has done a lot. And in terms of, I think, what it can do for us going forward, we all know like where we're good and like our own cycles and rhythms. And so it's just taking, this is the trick, one tiny little baby step that we say, that's the thing I'm going to work on. So for a long time, it was, I'm going to be the most relaxed person everywhere. So anytime I found myself in like the grocery line or concert ticket line or any like airport line is a great place to practice, where you look at the line and you're like, oh my God, I would say, hey, guess what? You now have 30 to 40 minutes of practice time. You get to keep practicing being the most relaxed person and see the more you can relax down to like the space between my pinky toe, like if I can be so relaxed everywhere, how it will impact the people around you. And I had a sensei who would always say, when you can be the most relaxed person, you can affect the whole line, you can affect the whole queue, and everybody should start to calm down. And I was like, really? He's like, well, try, because at least you won't be burning energy you don't have. In bold moves, especially when you know it's time to take another one, it's important that you'll start to feel it inside yourself. Like my energy is getting really cranky, starting to flag. I don't have energy anymore. And you just are going to want to pay attention to that because that's an internal sign that you need something different than what you have now. You're growing.
What techniques? Okay, so I know you've said we need to, or it's a goal to become the most relaxed person in the room, which for some of us, depending on where we are on the spectrum, can feel like a
Yes.
far off goal. But what are some techniques that you've learned along the way that can help you get to a state of like, almost like, it feels a little chaotic when you're standing in that airport line, your flight's just been canceled, and now they tell you that you have to go rebook with the representative over there, and now that line has now grown and your mind is freaking out. So in those moments, what is a technique or two that you could use to bring yourself down to more calm state?
Mhm. So these are my go-to hacks for any challenge. This is my playbook.
Okay.
Number one is the moment I notice that I'm getting hot, I'm getting agitated, I want to react, I want to be not my best self, I immediately take like the three calming deep breaths. I will breathe in through the nose and I will try to blow it out, and sometimes I'll have to do this a couple of repeat patterns. And the idea is that the exhale will be longer than my inhale. And
Mm-hmm.
to speed up this process, I will actually take a hand and I'll put it on my heart, or I'll, like, if I'm waiting in line, I might do this. What it signals to the body is, hey, girlfriend, you are not getting chased by a saber-toothed tiger. You
Mm-hmm.
are not going to not get on a plane somewhere. Let's just calm the jet down, like bring the
Mm-hmm.
reactivity down because that's not going to serve you and
Mm.
it's not going to help the situation. And this poor person on the other side of I always feel bad for the people who have to rebook everybody because
Oh,
they get
totally.
like the brunt of
Yes.
everybody, and like you don't want to make that person's life a living hell. So can I just calm that down? And if you do this for about 90 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
what you start to do is you start to hack your sympathetic nervous system, which is that fight or flight response, and you start to tell your parasympathetic nervous system, that's the part of you that's rest recovery. This is like when you're like oxytocin starts to flow through the body.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
where I want that energy when I go to meet any crisis.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so 90 seconds, that's all you need. And you should be in a better mental framework to
Mm-hmm.
hit like
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is that's going on. And for me, when I would be in high stress, high stakes moments at work, I would either just be like, hey guys, I just need a moment, or I would like go
Mm-hmm.
look out a window if I had a window out of for some perspective, or I'd hop into the bathroom and just be like, let's just calm
Mm-hmm.
things down because you don't have time or energy to burn on this reactivity right now. It's going to feel good and then you're going to feel like crap afterwards. So just try to meet this moment
Yeah.
in a better way because you can model a different way to lead in these moments.
Those are great tips that anybody could practically apply in those moments at the grocery store, at the airport, or even in a meeting at the office where you may not agree with the outcome of what is occurring. And and when you feel your blood starting to boil, maybe it's time to just to yourself take some deep breaths and let your body calm down. And I've also found that, and I know this to be true, that the person on the other end, if you're hat head reactive versus cool, calm, and collected, you're going to get the better outcome with the person on the other side when you're cool, calm, and collected. They will probably, if you're at that airport scenario that I keep bringing up, they will probably actually more accommodate you in the better schedule, or maybe they'll upgrade you than they are willing to do it for the hot-headed person because they, obviously aren't feeling that kind to that person who is screaming their head off at them.
I think what it comes down to, I've been reflecting on this, it's a difference between being transactional with somebody, which when it
Yes.
happens to me always feels gross. I hate it when it
Mm-hmm.
happens. You can
Mm-hmm.
feel it.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, God, you didn't even like greet my humanity today. I am a human being with my own
Mm-hmm.
stuff going on in the background. But like, can
Mm-hmm.
you be human with me? Or is there a way that we can switch this to being a partnership?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget. hearing somebody once say that wherever they go, they try to make the other people around them become a problem solver with them, like they work as a team, that they're moving together. And he said it's so much more effective where they recognize I'm just not out to come and get them,
Yeah.
right? But it's like, what are all the ways that we can work together to solve this problem? Like, how do we help do the thing that's going to be most helpful? So, I mean, another thing you can just do is like try to be the most relaxed person. Like anywhere you are queuing up or there's a line or waiting on the phone, if you need
Yeah.
to talk to a customer
Yes.
service
Right.
representative, just see if you can just keep being calm.
Mm.
And it's not always going to be possible, but when you do have that moment with another human being, you really,
Mhm.
unless it's AI, you really will have a conversation with another human being. And there will be a chance to provide feedback, I'm sure, at some point, but you don't have to attack that person right
Yeah.
away. And there's so much attacking going on now. How do we find a way? We may not agree, but how do we find a way to have a conversation with each other so that we can actually move things forward if it's possible and stop the attacks?
I've heard you discuss the idea that, and I think this is right, Kelly, so make sure that I'm saying this correctly, but before you say yes or no to a request, let's call it, somebody's coming to you and making a request or introducing a new opportunity or, whatever the situation might be, or just you're analyzing a new opportunity for yourself
Mm-hmm.
or making, trying to decide which is the right direction for you, that you try to get in your body to define what that yes and no is and feel into the yes or no. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about that for the listeners and help them understand what a yes or no might feel like in your body and why it's important to answer in your body and with your mind and not just use your mind as the final decision maker on a yes no decision.
Mm-hmm. Right. What I like about the body is that I think it can be fast and slow simultaneously. So the body for me is a place where I think of it as earth, and it's going to move a little bit more slowly than the speed of my mind, which can feel very fast, especially if I'm reacting to something. If I make decisions out of just my mind alone and I'm reacting, and it can come like, in an amenable way where a request comes in and you're like, God, that sounds like great. Yes, of course I should say yes, yes to that. And like, yes. And then later you're like, why did I say yes to that? I don't
Yes.
have energy. I
I
don't
don't
have
have
time.
time.
Why
Mm-hmm.
am I doing this? Like, what
Mm-hmm.
about this did I get hooked on? How do I get out of it? And
Yeah.
so you don't want to fall into that. So I think I've learned this the hard way. So for all out there, everyone out there who's listening to this would be my advice: is to find a quiet place, take a couple of calming deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. See if you can bring your brain down to like where your hip bones would be, and see if you can like
Yes.
sink down into the surface of yourself. And then you can do this very quickly in a few minutes. I'll walk you through it. And then when you
Mm-hmm.
are listening, you can take this out for a spin with more time and space. But the idea is that to find your authentic yes, you calm yourself down. And the question that you're asking yourself is, if someone asked me, hey, Kel, do you know for sure if you really love fill in the blank of the thing that you love, what would you say? And so for me, in my quiet space inside myself, I think to myself, like, what would I know for sure? And so for me, it would be like, oh, I know for sure I love this.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
hold it and I try to feel it with all of my senses. Can I smell it, taste it, touch it? Can I call it up in my mind? And then I should start to feel probably parts of my body turn on. And in that
Yeah.
turning on, can I pay attention to where it is in my body that is reacting to this thing that I love? What does it feel like? Does it have a shape? Does it have an image? Does it have a smell, a color, whatever? Note it down on a piece of paper. Come out of it, let it go. Think about something neutral, whatever neutral is for you.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever neutral is for you, feel what does neutral feel like for me, where I have neither a strong yes reaction or a
Mm-hmm.
strong no reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So that neutral quality, what's neutral? And then when you go to figure out, hey, Kel, if I were to ask you, do you know for sure you don't like this thing? Fill in the blank. I would say don't choose something you know for sure is like a 10 out of 10. I can't stand this thing. Try to bring it down to like maybe a 4 or 5 on your scale, and then hold that. See where you feel it in your body. It should feel different than your yes. It should feel different than your neutral. Once you get a sense of it, same thing as the yes and the neutral activity, write it all down. Where did you feel it? How did you experience it? Whatever. And then when you let that go, make sure you feel something good again. So when you come
Yep.
out of it, you're not just thinking about something like, ugh, this is terrible. And then to practice this, once you get it, be very curious about it and then take
Mm-hmm.
it out for a spin. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe you are going to go to a restaurant and you have a menu and you're like, God, I don't know what I should have. What should I
Yeah.
have? And you hold each option and you see, what does your body want to react to?
Mm-hmm.
Your body might be like, we want ice cream. And your mind's like, no, like not today. We're not going to do that today. But you'll have more intelligence in your decision making process. And I'm not saying that you should give your mind or your body like 100%. I'm saying bring it
Mm-hmm.
all to the table and have a
Mm-hmm.
conversation, but bring in more intelligence than maybe you've been bringing before. And so when you are in a transitional moment, when you're thinking about bold moves and you're inside that bold move and you're thinking like, man, I need to
Mm-hmm.
leave this over here because I feel called to go over here.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'll have an open net and I'll also include all these other things too. But as opportunities come to you, you're going to feel how you're reacting to it. And it may not make logical sense. And what I have learned over the years is
Mm-hmm.
when you do this, always build in more time. Don't commit right away. Just say, hey, I need to look at my schedule. Let me take a moment. I'll get back to you within 24
Yeah.
hours and give yourself space to do this more methodically
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
mindfully. And then as opportunities come, you could say, what is it about this experience that I feel called to or repelled by? And what you're trying to figure out is, I don't know, I just can't put my finger on it. I just don't get a good feeling about this. So trust that. You can keep
Mm-hmm.
exploring, but trust that. It might be that, man, I'm repelled by this because I'm scared of it because it's going to require me to learn more. It could be a
Mm-hmm.
call for growth, and you're like,
Yeah.
I'm scared, or
Yeah.
I'm excited, scared. I don't know. Like, how
Yeah.
does it happen for you?
I I think that I really resonated with that because when you're making bold moves, the uncomfortability of a bold move can feel like a no. And I think what you're saying is it's really important to feel it in your body and understand that's the reaction that's coming up for you. And then use your mind to analyze it and
Mm-hmm.
also think, is it because I'm scared of this growth opportunity that I think actually will benefit me in the long run? Or is it just the wrong decision? And then it's being more analytical around the decision making rather than just a gut instinct reaction out the gate around, oh, that's not for me. I'm just moving on.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have to keep experimenting with this too and paying attention. And so as I'm thinking
Yeah.
about like where do I want to get involved next? Like what kind
Mhm.
of company, what kind of space is it
Mhm.
going to be for me?
Yeah.
And I hold these opportunities, I hold these conversations. I
Mhm.
do keep a notebook, and
Mm.
every opportunity that comes up, I will write down after every single one, how did this feel? Where did I feel it in my body? What do I want to do next? How would this
Mm.
help me grow? And those are questions that I hold. And I
Mhm.
will often make predictions as some things come across my plate. Like there's a one particular company that will remain nameless
Mhm.
that looks amazing.
Mhm.
And in my conversations, every single time I think about the company, I hold a conversation in myself, or I have a conversation with them. At the end, I'm always with this feeling of, I don't think this is going to work out. I don't get a good feeling about this. I don't think this is really for me.
Mhm.
But what do? I keep sending the emails. I keep saying that I'm interested because I am. I want to make sure I've got it all. But I'm pretty sure this is the one that's not going to work out. And I'm really okay with it. I probably could have saved myself a lot of time if I had just paid attention to
Mm.
myself right away. But again, it's good to run the experiment. It's validating. It gives you confidence to believe it more succinctly in the future.
And sometimes you just need more information too. Sometimes maybe it's not so blatant out the gate about what the decision is. Maybe you just need more
Right.
information. You need to collect more information about that thing, and keep feeling into it. I'm so glad we got a chance to touch on that. And I do hope listeners, and I'm going to do this experiment too. So maybe we can all do it together. And for the listeners who do this exercise, and as Kelly says, it's a practice maybe rather than just like a one and done. So maybe we all think about it as a practice. But if you do this, please leave a note in the reviews letting us know that you tried it and what your experience was. I think, just using our full capability, our full humanness to bring our best to every decision we make is important. And I think this is a way to start doing that. Kelly, this has been a true honor and pleasure. As I said, a real highlight to speak with somebody who has held a position in the CIA and get to talk about the experiences that shaped you there and some of the ways in which you're now helping others learn from those experiences. So, gosh, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for joining me. I have a final question I ask my guests. I would love to ask you. And the question is, what is one piece of advice you have for listeners and me to keep our momentum going and our courage going when that initial excitement fades from a bold move and the real work begins?
Man, this is a good one, right? Because we're facing all of it. It's that question of perseverance. Anytime you make change, you kind of go through the valley of, I think I call it like trials. It's the
Yeah.
it's the tough part where you're just like, it feels like Death Valley. How am I ever going to get out of this? How am I ever going to see my way out of it? And one, I think you have to have a wellspring of a reserve inside yourself. And the thing that I say to myself every day is like, I bet on you, kid. Like, I bet on you. I know you have it within you to do the thing you're called to do. I bet on you. Because if no one else is going to bet on you, you've got to bet on yourself. Two, when I'm in that like valley of trials, I always think there are going to be people who are going to help me out along the way. I just need to make sure that I can see them because they're there. Like, Kristen, you're one of them for me as we're in this like experience, right?
Mhm,
People come in and they give you opportunities to share your story,
mhm, mhm,
reflect back to you, shape,
mhm,
you get to like keep
mhm,
growing as you're in
mhm,
those moments. So there's more help out there than you think that there is. And
mhm,
then where's the thing inside yourself that you draw strength from? And this is a
mhm,
practice for some people. It's like there's this tree in my neighborhood. I just got to go touch the tree, right? For some people, it's talking to
mhm,
someone that they really love, that has their back. It's a safe person. It's a mantra. It's a prayer practice. It's, whatever your jam is in the background. It's the place where you go, where you feel you can be most vulnerable and simultaneously most safe. So I usually, in these moments, will ask my psyche before I go to sleep at night, hey,
Hey.
I need help. I'm in the trial. Like, give me a dream. I need
Mm,
something. And, I've been charting my dreams for a long time. And I often will get something that is an image or a word or something. And it is just enough to keep going. So I would say that would be my advice, that
mhm.
trifecta. And I would love to hear from other listeners, in the comment section, because I want to learn from you too, all of you out there.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I am so glad that you were able to join me today on the Bold Moves How Did You Know podcast. If anybody wanted to be in touch with you and continue learning from you, where can they find you?
Oh my gosh. So I don't have social media, obviously, because of my background, but you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty
Okay.
easy to find.
Mhm,
And that's where I am at least now.
mhm.
And hopefully it'll grow in the
Yeah.
future. But that's a place to hit me up.
The brightest future is ahead for you, Kelly. You just have so much
Hey,
to
for all of
share
us.
and to, yes, but to share and to teach and to make the world a better place. You're already doing it. For everybody else listening to our conversation, hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And we will see you in the next episode. Bye for now.